You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Homefield Apparel.
Right up Meridian, baby.
Welcome back to the Right Up Meridian podcast here on the Back Home Network. I'm Zion Brown, and we've got Scott back with us here for today. Scott, how's it going, man?
I'm doing well, man. How you doing?
Doing pretty well. Been watching this team, unfortunately, almost, right? Watching this team throughout their first couple of weeks and just keeping track with everything here. And it hasn't been great, but we'll get into that in a moment.
It has not been great. I was just telling you, I was at the last two games. We can talk about Myles' return. I was there for that, and I was there for the Nets game. That was rough. That sucked.
Yeah. Once again, we're on the Back Home Network. All of our Back Home Network podcasts are presented by Homefield Apparel. Scott, have you seen these new Game Breaker jackets?
I just saw them. I was at the breakfast with my sons. There's no school today. It's like parent-teacher conference day, so we're at breakfast. And I saw the email, and I pulled out I'm like, my son, you're going to love this. Like 12 years old, and it looks like the 90s starters jackets are back. I mean, everything 90s is back, but no, they look, as you and your kids would say, look fire.
Yes, indeed. Fire indeed. So those released and dropped this morning as we're speaking here on Friday early afternoon. So go ahead and check those out at homefieldapparel.com and use code HOME23 for first-time buyers for 15% off. So, Scott, I think the right place to start, just because it has been the biggest headline, your thoughts on the whole Myles Turner situation. Basically everything we've seen the last week plus. I was recording last week, and it was right as that the podcast with the Nasties came out that obviously sparked some more news and some more tension. And so that was, I believe, Thursday. And then we get to the game actually happening Monday. And they did a tribute video, which I was like 50-50 on when I talked about it on the pod last week. They did the tribute video, but it was the Boo Birds all night. Just like you said, you were there. What were your thoughts from the whole situation on Monday?
He was booed hard. Here's my take, and everyone can have their own feeling. Like, my personal opinion is this, and we talked about this earlier in the summer too. Like, I don't think anybody did anything wrong. The Pacers, they gave Myles very good contracts. They never really underpaid him. There was a time a couple years ago that they extended his contract and retroactively paid him more the year past. Like, they did him fine. You know, there was a Turner's block. He was kind of the number 2 centerpiece of the team for 10 years. It was never really the centerpiece. The Pacers tributed him well. I think that, they probably felt like they didn't want to pay him the amount that he was offered. And that maybe because of his age, but I don't think they did him wrong. They didn't send him out bad way. On the flip side, Myles didn't do anything wrong either. Like, from Myles' perspective, the Pacers didn't sign him. Like, they were looking to trade him for a while, which is fine. Everyone's looking to trade everybody in the NBA. He didn't get signed. He was a complete free agent. He was able to take all the offers. He took an offer that had more years and more money. I can't fault him. Again, I look at it as like, I don't think anybody did anything wrong. Where I do think things got interesting is, so then Myles said some of that stuff. And it's like, all right, man, you go to the Pacers' number 1 rival. Like, I'm not sure what you're expecting, out of fans. Like, some people are going to be pissed. Some people are going to boo. I didn't boo. I told my son, like, look, man, again, I don't think anybody did anything wrong. That's just business. Like, I'm going to cheer for Myles, but I'm also going to cheer for the Pacers. I also, this is a bit of a generational thing. It's something that has to be done. Like, the Pacers have to play that video, or else they look like dicks to everybody in the league. And so you got to do it. But it's just, having grown up in the 80s and 90s, it's like, dude, Myles left the team. He's not dead. He's not retired. Like, do we need to do a tribute video right now? And by the way, what did you expect? You're doing a tribute video where he's like, Indy. Like, do you expect me to be like, and like, everyone's just going to boo him? And it's like, he's talking about, oh, man, my heart's in Indiana, love this place. Like, well, you're not here. You're playing for the Bucks. Like, people are going to boo that. So I think this tribute video stuff on, it's like a separate topic. I think is probably like needs to be taken care of. Like, stop doing it, because like all you're going to do is boo. There's nothing to be like, oh yeah, like it maybe in 5 years when you retroactively go back and people are retired, like you can just look at the team, that's great. But it's just it felt a little too soon. And I just kind of wonder, like, Myles seemed a little bit shocked by the boos. Like, I don't know why you're shocked by that. Like, that's what fans do. Fans care. So anyway, at a high level, I don't think anybody did anything wrong. I'm not sure Myles should have been booed, but I do think the way everything was set up, it's like that was the perfect scenario for everyone to boo their heads off, which they did.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Like I started watching the NBA around like 2010, 2011, and like I feel
Yeah.
like as long as I remember, these tribute videos were a thing. But I guess from your perspective, do you know like I don't know the history of them? Like, do you know the first one you remember like seeing or remembering a player getting one for going back to an old team?
It's dude. That's a great question. Feel like if I Googled it, like first tribute video, it would be easy to find. I mean, yeah, like in 2011, 2010, they were happening. I mean, but it just didn't. It didn't happen in the 80s, 90s, and I think even in the 2000s. I wonder if like Jordan got one when he went back to the Bulls with the Wizards. And I'm not sure. I don't remember, but it did feel like it was this kind of LeBron generation where it started. I don't know if he got one when he went back to the Heat or went back to the Cavs as member of the Heat. So yeah, I mean, but I just don't think I would imagine most of these tribute videos the next year, it's probably like 95% booing. I just don't, there's not many of these situations where it's like, this is awesome. I'm so happy this guy's not on the team. Unless it's like Jimmy Butler or something going back to Minnesota. But even then it's like, that was not great. The thing that I was thinking about for Myles is there are not a lot of examples of guys just going straight to a rival. Like you had, Ray Allen go from the Heat from the Celtics to the Heat, where there was a lot of rivalry there. And those guys were pissed. Like from my understanding, like Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett still are like pissed at Ray Allen for doing that. Because you went straight to the team that you were fighting, tooth and nail to year after year. And the Pacers and Bucks have some of that, not as much as those two teams. I think about like in baseball, Johnny Damon went from the Red Sox to the Yankees. That was also a little bit peculiar. But if there's any harm here, it's like that's the only thing. If you're like Myles, like you went to the main rival the Pacers have outside of maybe the Knicks. So like what were you expecting? But yeah, the tribute video thing it's definitely here to stay. But I think in a weird way, it almost creates more animosity than just if they don't even acknowledge Turner when he comes back.
Right. And also with the tribute video stuff, it's like the concept of an NBA team having like a digital, like a content team is just so new also, right? So like in 1995, there was nobody to really put a video like that together for an NBA team, right? In the way that it has been in the last, 10 to 15 years. But yeah, and it's the fact that
and he came out and said like it wasn't talking to the fans, it's talking about the organization. But again, I'm like, and we can get off it, but it's like I don't know where the organization did Myles wrong. Like they had him on the team for 10 years. They paid him a good amount. They never really underpaid him. I felt like when he was with the Pacers, and they offered him, one less year and like $8 million less year. It wasn't like they offered him like a 2-year, $10 million deal. Like they offered him, what was it, 3 years, $50 million. They offered him a relatively fair contract. The Bucks paid him a lot. So I'm not sure where all the animosity is coming from out of Myles.
Right. And I think that animosity or the things we've heard him say, whether he feels like he's been maybe misunderstood in the things that he said, I think a lot of that's on him. If you're misunderstood one time, Myles, that happens. If you get misunderstood 3 or 4 times, you are not choosing your words correctly, right? Yeah. Like if it's a trend in you, that is on you at a certain point. You are continually misunderstood, and that's what's happened here. He said the thing about Tyrese on the Analysis podcast. What is it? The Analysis, which I tweeted when that came out. That clip came out. I was just like, with all due respect, like you're not getting me to like react to a clip on a podcast called The Analysis. Like,
what did he say about Halliburton? I didn't catch that.
You didn't see this? Okay, so no. Oh man, I need to try to find the full quote here, but it was along the lines of just basically Tyrese, as far as the way he talks and talks his trash and whatever on the court, doesn't act that same way like off the court, and like everybody's like, yeah, he's playing basketball. Like nobody is just going out here and just talking trash to random civilians like in the street. Like it was just like a weird, like, why are you saying this? Once again, something where I think he was just like, I misunderstood with what I was trying to say. And once again, I kind of get that, but at a certain point, it's just like, you can't keep saying you've been misunderstood, once or twice every month since the signing has happened,
No, it's a great point. I would also say where I'm a little bit annoyed is again, you made a business decision and you kind of do hey man, it's a business. Like this was the first time it was like a real, eye-opening to business. It's like, okay, I get it. Like, yes, you took more years and more money, which everybody would do. And again, I do not fault him for that. But to then be like, man, but I was always in trade rumors. It's like, okay, but the business is, guess what? Unless you're the number one guy on your team, you're always in trade rumors in the NBA. Like, welcome to the NBA. Like, that is the business of the NBA. Like, guess who's not in trade rumors? Tyrese Halliburton. Guess who else is not in trade rumors in the Pacers? Nobody. like everyone else is in trade rumors. Like, look at the Celtics. Jaylen Brown might as well been, was he finals MVP? He's won a title. He's been a stud there. He's in trade rumors all the time. Everyone who plays with LeBron is in trade rumors. Luka got traded. So like this idea of like, man, I'm hurt, you're in trade rumors. Like, dude, then be the best player on your team. Like, then that's how you don't get in trade rumors. And even then, sometimes you're in trade rumors. Like, it is that ability to be like, to talk about, oh, it's a business, and then not understand there's a business part of this. Like, that's the way the business is. And oh, by the way, they never traded you. And by the way, sometimes those trade rumors came from other teams trying to get you. The Pacers didn't. So I'm with you. You bring up a very good point. It's like at some point you're just like, you're saying the wrong stuff. You're not. And this could be very easy to just, I know it gets annoying in the same question. Hey man, like Indy was great. I love my 10 years. I got a great deal from Milwaukee. I'm happy to be playing here. Done. Like done. Moving on.
Yeah. I found the quote. So he says that Tyrese Halliburton knows he's protected. That's the first part of it, which is like, duh. Once again, that's literally what you just talked about. Like, yes, he is the franchise player. He is protected. Right. And the second part of this quote is just that it says he wouldn't talk the same shit in the middle of the street, which is like, yeah, who does that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, right. He's an NBA player making $50 million. Why would he? I don't get that quote at all. I didn't get it.
Yeah. Well, no, like the only person who did was Jordan. Like the stories you hear about Michael Jordan, he was just like insane all the time. Like Reggie Miller talked a ton of trash, and then it seems like a pretty nice guy and is on TV. And like, Reggie's not talking trash the entire time on TNT. Like it's something you do on the court, off the court. But again, this is a Tyrese Halliburton thing too, where it's like there's something about Halliburton that rubs dudes the wrong way. I mean, that's no surprise that he was ranked the most overrated player going into the playoffs. Now he's stepped up and took care of that. But like there's a world where Halliburton just rubs dudes the wrong way in the NBA.
Right. I think it's something where I don't know if it's his personality necessarily as much as it is. I do think the trash talking is part of it. But I also think with Tyrese, what it is, especially when it comes to that overrated stuff, when you're an NBA player and you're defending a guy and you might not feel like he is the most dangerous scorer, right? You don't feel like he's Shea. You don't feel like he's Giannis or Joel Embiid. It's hard for you as a player. You're like, if you're a point guard guarding Tyrese Halliburton, you could be like, I defended him pretty well tonight. And you may or may not be right, but he might still end up with 14 assists because just that's the way he plays. His game is not predicated on winning the one-on-one matchup every single night in that sense, right? And so then you see that you're like, well, I just held him to 16 points, and you feel like you guarded him well, and it's like you didn't guard him poorly. However, he still had an incredible impact on this game because his game isn't just to score one-on-one.
I also saw it in the game where, I do wonder in a couple of years what Turner's going to think of these decisions that he made. And again, man, go get your bag, go get more money, go get more years, go where you feel like maybe you're appreciated more. Although I thought he was well appreciated in Indy. But like I watched that team and it is so Giannis centric as it should be. I mean, he is the sun and everything that team runs around, but like at the end of the game, Turner's just standing in the corner. Like he's just a 3-and-D guy. Like, he's not part of the offense. He's just a release valve for Giannis. And, with the Pacers, he was a big part of it. Like him and Halliburton had a great 2-man game. They played a nice, pick and roll thing. Like he was way more engaged in the offense in Indiana than I ever saw him in Milwaukee. Again, one game with Milwaukee, but just watching that team, it's like, man, that team is not awesome when Giannis is not on the court. When Giannis is in the court, they all play well around him, and it actually is a team that makes sense with Giannis. But in 18 months, if Giannis is in New York, it's like, what do you got? But even with Giannis there, it's like you're just standing in the corner, man. Like hope you enjoy it. Hope that's worth an extra $10 million.
Yeah, and from what I've seen thus far with the Bucks, including that game on Monday, I think playing with Giannis has hurt Myles quite a bit offensively, right? Not rather either whether that's playing with not playing with Giannis, but like playing not with Tyrese Halliburton has hurt him a lot offensively. But then defensively, I do think his life looks a lot easier playing with another all defensive type guy like Giannis. For what right? I think he had what 3 or 4 blocks in that game on Monday. Like he's been a very impactful defender more so than I felt like he had been the last few years here.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, I think a lot of guys, again, we can get off Myles. Like I think a lot of guys would do well playing with Giannis next to them.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I really hope. I think I said this last week even. I hope to no longer talk about Myles in the context of things that he said or done. Right, like it's a part of this season, the fact that he's no longer here. So like his name will continue to come up just about him not being in Indy. But I hope as far as talking about his quotes and whatnot, that is hopefully the end of it. So we'll catch up now to the last week or so of play. I said last week going into the Pacers 4-game homestand that if they can at least go 2-2, it's going to be a troubling sign. And they finish it going 1-3. Losses to the Hawks. Giannis, we didn't even actually talk about Giannis hitting the 20-foot fadeaway game winner to win that game on Monday night.
I mean, it's the shot you want. Like they played great defense. Yeah. It's exactly the shot you would want the Bucks to take.
Right. And hat tip to him. Great shot. Yeah. And then on Wednesday night, they lost to Brooklyn. Their one win during this homestand was on Saturday when they were able to beat Golden State. That's a team that's kind of struggling right now too. But just from these couple of games, you said you were at these last two, Milwaukee and Brooklyn. What did you see? What is your kind of feeling now on this team now that they are 1-7 tied for the bottom at the East?
I'll quote my wife halfway through the Nets game. She's just like, so her and I go to that game. She's like, Pascal looks like he needs a hug. He just looks pissed. Like Pascal looks annoyed. I mean, it's wild, Zion, because you watch this game like against the Bucks. It's like Nesmith stands out at like how hard he's playing, and then you watch some of the other dudes, and it's like, oh yeah, this is why these guys are not top level NBA talent players. And then there's these lineups against the Nets where I mean, a lot of this is due to injury and just guys not being available. You just have Pascal and Nesmith, or Pascal and just a bunch of dudes, and it's like you see how annoying it must be to play for that. Like Pascal is shouldering so much of the load. He looks annoyed. There was a weird play where like Isaiah Jackson got the rebound, and like the guy with the two names, the guy with the hyphen name, I don't even know his name. But it's like he goes to get the ball, and then Jackson's like, dude, just get off. Like, I'll bring it up. And it's like nobody knows who to bring the ball up. There's really not a point guard. Pascal is like he looks like you should be there. Like, and like there's so many times like they start the offense, and it's like they're waving guys off, and like you should be over there, and it's like they're passing to places they shouldn't be, and it's rough. My biggest concern at a high level is this, and I want to ask you like what you think the team should be doing. But my biggest concern is, you look at the 76ers, they went through the process. They just had 5 or 6 years of just sucking. And I do think that rubbed off on guys like Embiid and Simmons, where they just get kind of in a culture of like, we don't have to play that hard, or, it doesn't really matter. I am slightly worried when you watch a guy like Nesmith or Siakam playing, especially Nesmith, there's like super high, like intense level, and no one else around him is. I just don't want to lose the momentum of everything we had last year with the guys who matter. Whether Mac McClung, who now got kicked off, was not on the team, or like, Quentin Jackson, like whether they're able to do well or not, it's like, not to be mean, like, I don't really care. None of those guys are going to be impacting our season next year. But I do worry about the guys who will be impacting. Like, can we keep that intensity throughout this year, or just not lose it, or have a way to get through this year without can kind of just punt and pick up where we left off last year? But it's going to be tough because there's 74 more games to play where you could lose some of that intensity.
That's a good viewpoint of it. And I like that you mentioned that 76ers team, because I do feel like that losing culture, even though their players got good enough to obviously, in Embiid's case, be MVP and make the playoffs and have the teams, I do think that culture of losing that they kind of purposely built for those 3 or 4 years did still carry over once they became a good team. Right. And I think you saw that, and maybe not necessarily with Embiid. I think you probably saw the biggest with Ben Simmons, and you saw the way that he just kind of mentally just didn't feel equipped to ever play in the playoffs. And so that is a good point. And you look at the Pacers team, guys, I think like you said it, Neesmith will be fine. Siakam's fine. I don't really worry about those guys next year being able to compete and be on that winning sort of team. But you look at a guy like Jarris Walker, Ben Shepherd, Isaiah Jackson, players like that who we haven't really seen at a consistent level, perform well in a playoff atmosphere to this point. And we're just kind of right now just wondering, like, will this carry over? Will this kind of odd situation where it doesn't feel like they're emphasizing wins, and I don't want to say the Pacers aren't emphasizing wins. It's been hard for them to win. They don't have lineups that a normal NBA team can win with. You have Ben Shepherd playing heavy point guard minutes, right? Quentin Jackson looked pretty good when he was playing, and then of course he gets hurt, and so it's just like it's been so inconsistent, and you chalk it up to this being sort of a lost season. But you don't want this lost season, as you said, to turn into a culture where your guys just don't know how to win or what it looks like or feels like to win. And so you have to really balance that out well. And there's so much for me that I just don't know how to evaluate, not even because of the obvious Tyrese injury, but because so much of our optimism that we maybe had about this team coming into the season was based on potential leaps from Benedict Mathurin and Andrew Nembhard. And Nembhard we saw play 15 minutes or whatever, and he hasn't played since. And Benedict Mathurin looked very good in the 2 games he played, or a game and a half really that he played. And then we haven't seen him since, still just week to week. I don't think we've gotten an update on him since Rick Carlisle first said he was week to week almost 2 weeks ago. So I don't know how to evaluate that, because those were supposed to be your 2 lead ball handlers along with Siakam. And so right now you are asking guys like Neesmith to handle the ball more, or Jarris or Ben Shepherd. And I like those 3 guys at different levels and for different reasons, but none of those reasons for any of them are as primary ball handlers.
So, all right, couple things I want to dig out of that you mentioned. I want to get to Mathurin, which we'll get to. I want to get to the injuries. So let's bookmark both of those 2 things.
Yeah,
but
I've got the injuries as one of my bullet points. Yeah. I got you.
But Jarris Walker. So seeing him 2 more games, I come away with I'm not sure, man. Like, I just don't know if he is going to be a starting player on a team that could make the finals. And just watching him play, you're in year 3 now. And I know he's still young. He's like 22 years old, but it's like, dude, you're 3 years in. And you look at everybody else from that draft, like both the Thompson brothers are just doing dynamite stuff. Wemby's obviously Wemby. Who else is in that? Everyone in the draft above him is like just starting to do stuff. And it's like that Nets game. He has 6 points. Now he had 18 points against the Bucks, but it was also, a couple threes. I also, they just don't seem to know how to feature him either. Like, he's still playing a lot of point guard. He has some pretty good, okay passes here or there, but I mean, watching him live, he just is still so tentative. Like, he gets the ball and it's like, you could tell, it's like, should I shoot? Should I dribble? Should I pass? What should I do? Whereas like even a guy like Ben Shepherd, it's like, he gets the ball. It's like, boom, he's shooting or he's driving. Like he knows what he's doing. He knows what he should be doing. Walker still seems to be thinking too much. And we're at the point now where it's like, dude, on a shorthanded night, and I don't want to pick on him for 1 game, but it's like, dude, a shorthanded night, you play 32 minutes against the Nets. The Nets blow. You should be able to get more than 6 points. You're shooting 27% in that game. Like, dude, this is where you should be like, hey, man, I'm a dude. Like Mathurin would do. Like Mathurin would put up 24 points in that game. So anyway, I'm starting to get really, really worried about Walker as a guy who can really contribute moving forward.
I agree. And I'm looking at his stats right now. Through 8 games this year, he's shooting just 33% from the field and 30% on threes. And I think it was with you, or I can't remember if it's with you or a solo pod I did, but just that concept of that 0.5 concept. And I talked about how much Walker hasn't been able to nail that down. And that's the concept. Just it's gone around the NBA, but I think the Pacers really these last couple of years have been the embodiment of it. Just you catch the ball, and within half a second, you know what you're doing with it. You are dribbling and try to set up some sort of drive. You're shooting, or you're passing it to somewhere else. And you said it right. I think you said that basically. Just he hasn't gotten that down to the point where he just doesn't feel comfortable catching the ball and quickly making a decision what to do with it. He catches it. He has to really think about what he does with it. And I do think he's a solid processor. It's just that processing doesn't come until the ball is in his hands and until he can, take 2 or 3 seconds to look at the defense and kind of assess where he may want to go with the basketball. And I think on this team specifically, that is going to be led by Tyrese Halliburton. That is going to, have guys like Benedict Mathurin. You talked about it. He's going to catch the ball and he's immediately looking at the basket. And it might be going up. It might end up in another player's hands, but Benedict Mathurin is catching the ball, and he knows he wants to look at that rim first and foremost. And Jarris Walker right now doesn't feel like he's in that space. And he's the one guy that, with these injuries, you would have liked to see maybe, be a guy who consistently scores 13 to 17 points on at least okay efficiency. But we're not at that point right now. And you talked about it. He had the one 18-point Bucks game, but at a consistent level right now, it doesn't feel like he feels super comfortable or super adept to contribute to a winning team, especially not a winning team that wants to play the way the Pacers want to play when they're at full strength.
So let's throw this together with Mathurin, because I was talking to my wife about this too. The Pacers put themselves in an interesting spot now. Mathurin, his contract is up at the end of the year. I don't think they can extend him anymore. I think that time has passed, unless I'm wrong.
No, yeah, they can't talk contract with him until the summer.
Yeah. So do you need to trade him and Walker? Because here's the thing with Mathurin. It's like I've not run an NBA team, but I look at it as like, I just don't think you can go back-to-back years losing Myles Turner, losing Benedict Mathurin, and getting nothing in return. So like they've extended everybody, but I feel like they keep extending dudes. They extended, Nesmith. I don't know what the plan is here, but I'm going to be really freaked out if we get past the trade deadline and we still have Mathurin. It really has nothing to do with him anymore. It's just, I don't know if you can lose two assets like that. And I just wonder, do you look at Mathurin and Walker as like, do we trade these two dudes and get something back and just fully give up on this season?
I think it would have to be for the right price, just because, once again, it's 2 games or a game and a half, however long it was. But man, Ben looked good. He looked really good.
If he doesn't re-sign this year, we've lost him for nothing, just like Turner.
I totally understand that, but I'm at a point where I'm like, I haven't seen enough to say they shouldn't re-sign him. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I'm at a point where I just want to see a month of basketball. So hopefully he can come back in the next couple of weeks and we see a month of what he looks like as the legitimate number 2 option on this team. And maybe the number 1 option, right? He was scoring more than Pascal in those couple of games. And I get where you're coming from. And I'm not in disagreement to say like, no way they should trade Mathurin. No, if the right thing comes across, I think they would be fine to get rid of him. But I do think he would be worth waiting until the summer to have those negotiations with, if you feel like he is a guy who is scoring enough and doing all these things and really looks like a legit, guy that could maybe be the 3rd scoring option on this team when Tyrese comes back. And so I am still holding out a bit of patience in that aspect of things. And I also do think it's beneficial for the Pacers to have somebody who plays like Benedict Mathurin, and I think Nembhard's a little bit like this, but not to the same extent, who's just is always searching for his own shot and is going to try to score when things break down within the offense. And so I think there's a value to having him. It'll be hard to replace him, regardless of if it's a trade or if they just lose his salary. And so I think it is worth just waiting. I would wait until the deadline to do it. Like I wouldn't do that trade in the next month or anything like that. I would wait until the deadline if I'm doing it, just so I can see what he looks like once he's back and healthy and see if what we saw in those first couple of games were legit.
I agree with you. I think they're playing. And again, man, maybe they've already talked to his people and they have an agreement, like kind of a handshake agreement in place. And it's like, we're going to sign you in the offseason, but it's like, you're playing with fire. Cause it's like, if you lose Turner and then you lose Mathurin back-to-back years, those are 2 big assets. And if you just have nothing in return, that really makes me nervous about where this team is going. So I hear everything you're saying. I wonder if like you get him back, you pump up his stats, and then you move him for something else. Just because it's very unusual in the NBA to let guys get to full free agency back-to-back years.
What do you think his market is, right? Because obviously he's a restricted free agent, so they'll be able to match whatever. What do you think maybe a ballpark annual value he'll bring in is?
I mean, so Nembhard next year is making $19 million and then $20 million. So I mean, I think Mathurin's in that category, around that range. So I'd say 20 to 25 million a year. So he's probably looking at 4 for 100 or 5 for 125.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see with him. Like this past summer, you had a couple of guys, Cam Thomas and Jonathan Kuminga, who had to wait it out and accept their qualifying offers. Mathurin's been a little bit more efficient than those 2 players, but he's in a similar mold where it's like he scores, but then it's like, what else necessarily?
Yeah.
And so I think Mathurin would get offers in the way that Thomas and Kuminga didn't seem to get any offers from anywhere else. But I'd be curious to see what the number is if
And I
it
guess
gets to that point.
you're right. They can match any offer. So I mean, the worst case scenario is you just match it and you're stuck with a bad contract that's tough to trade. I just so all right. This goes. We'll keep the discussion going. This goes to the kind of the injury thing and what we should do with this year, because it's funny. I was talking with another buddy, and he made a point I thought was very valid. Is like you have to look at training staffs at some point when you have this many injuries on a team. Some things are fluke. Halliburton is a different category. Break a bone, it's like that's a weird thing. But when you have this many strains and calf problems and just muscle strains, you do kind of have to look at the training staff and be like, all right, are you guys doing your job? Like, are you guys able to keep this team healthy to get out there? On the flip side, I also wonder with these injuries if this is the Pacers' way to kind of early tank and just be like, hey, like your car's in the shop and we're just going to fix everything while it's in the shop. And looking at this season is like, this is a tough season. And so, hey, Nembhard, shoulder hurts, like in a normal season, just play through it, man. It takes, do a little bit of extra training. This is like, all right, man, take 3 weeks off. It's like, or maybe, Nembhard would normally be 2 games off. It's like, go ahead and take a month. Like, we'll figure this out later. Same thing with McConnell. Like, I do wonder if these are really longer stretches for the injuries based on it allows us to just kind of quietly tank.
Yeah, and the only one we seem to have gotten a definitive timeline on is Obi Toppin, right? He actually had to go through a surgery, and so they said at least 3 months there. So at the earliest, we would see him in early to mid February. So we'll see if we even. I wouldn't be surprised if we just didn't even see him again this season because of that. It's like a foot surgery is not something to play with, and if you're at the trade deadline and you're well below 500, it's like, why rush him back or try to bring him back when he already had a surgery during the season? And then everything else, you're right. TJ McConnell, they said it'd be about a month. That was about a month ago, right? We're about getting to that time where it's like, all right, where are we at there? I talked about it. It's been 2 weeks since they said Mathurin was week to week. And so you get these injuries, and you're right. I do feel like there's a little bit of a waiting process that this team is doing, that they are truly going to wait until any and every one of these guys is 100% healthy. Cam Jones is an interesting one because I would have to believe they don't want to hold their rookie out just because they don't even know what he looks like on an NBA court. So he's one that I do think is probably still truly working his way back. And truthfully, I did not realize when he first suffered his back injury that it might even be that long for him, right? I thought it was just going to be kind of like a preseason thing, and then we still haven't seen him. And so I think maybe we might see him in the next week or so from what I've heard from Rick Carlisle, but who knows? And it's just all a big cluster of injuries that you're like, when are these people coming back? And what is the actual plan with this? And I don't know. They haven't, obviously you're not going to come out and say you're tanking. And I've kind of subscribed to Tony East. He's talked about this a little bit on his daily podcast and on Twitter. He's adamant that they aren't taking, and that obviously these injuries are real, but he's adamant that if they could have all these guys playing at the same time, they would, but they just can't right now. And so I don't think they're tanking, but you're obviously not contending, right? It doesn't even look like you're close to the play-in at this point. And so by the time some of these guys all come back and it seems like this team is near full strength, I don't know how bad the record is going to be. And so at that point, then you still could probably look at it and say, okay, let's lower the minutes for guys like Siakam, for guys like Nesmith. Because right now, Siakam's still playing 36 a night. Nesmith's still playing 32 a night. Those are the two starters that you have from last year who are still healthy, right? And so those guys are still playing high-level starter minutes for the Pacers. And so until we start to see those minutes maybe decrease a little bit, that's when I'll officially call it a tank. But I talked about it last week. Once again, I said if they don't go 2-2, I'm in for the tank. And they went 1-3 in that stretch. And, the one win was a good win, but it was against the Warriors team that hasn't been extremely impressive. I'm all in for them, not taking this year super seriously as far as the minutes go and as far as rushing guys back from injury in that circumstance.
Well, I think tank has gotten a bad rap. I mean, part of this is like you said, injuries. This is just like the season from hell, as Bill Simmons would say. I mean, everything has gone wrong, all of the wrong injuries. But you are at a point. You're 1-7. I mean, you're close to being 12% through the season. Like it's the season's only 80 games. You're over 10% of the season, and you are the worst team in the NBA. Or you have tied for the worst record, and you you don't have a tiebreak with the Nets. Like, I look at this next stretch of games, because there comes a point. We talked about the 76ers a little bit. I'm looking at their record from last year. Last year they started like 2-14. They had an awful start, and it just got to a point where it's like, whether you were trying or not, like you're done. Like you get to 20 games in the season, and you're still in the bottom of the standings. You're not pulling it back up, especially considering, like you mentioned, not all these guys are coming back. Like Obi Toppin's not coming back till February. Tyrese Halliburton's obviously not coming back this season. Nembhard, Mathurin, McConnell, I don't know if they're going to come back on this road trip or not, but like there comes a point where like it's not like you're getting more cavalry in. It's like this is the team you have. I'm just going to rattle off the next couple of games. They have this road trip. You're at Denver, at Golden State, at Utah, at Phoenix. All right, Utah and Phoenix are hot messes, so maybe you have a shot there. You come home, you're playing Toronto, then you're at Detroit. Toronto sucks. Detroit's not bad. You're home to Charlotte. Charlotte's frisky. You're then at Cleveland, home to Detroit, at Toronto, and then you have Washington, Chicago, Cleveland, Denver at home. That gets you to December 3rd. There's a couple games against Toronto, one game against Washington, a game against Chicago. But it's like if you get to the start of December and you're still at the bottom of the East or really close there, or you've only got 2 or 3 more wins, it may just be you've tanked. Like whether you want to or not, or call it a tank, like there's no point. What are you trying to do? And you might just be like, hey, we in a weird way, like we lucked into being at the bottom of the East, and let's just ride it out, as opposed to trying to like really push ourselves hard and bring guys back early just so we can be 2 games out of the play-in. Like if you're going to be at the bottom, just be at the bottom.
No, that I agree with, and I completely understand. And so, and it's just the fact that it doesn't feel like, and it's based off a feeling, because I don't know, it doesn't feel like this team is going to be close to fully healthy at any point, right? And it might be, they get one guy back and then somebody else goes down, right? And I just mentioned Quentin Jackson, not even somebody who we consider a part of the core of this team. He finally gets his shot to play like legit minutes. He looks very good in those couple of games. Then he goes down, and it's just like, it feels like it's going to be that constant process this year. We talked so glowingly about Johnny Furphy in our preview podcast, and he hasn't been able to play. It's just this kind of frustrating season that it's been so far for the Pacers. And even with the guys that don't need to necessarily rest, right? Like Siakam is a guy who's a guy like Cam Jones. Those are people we want to see just what they look like playing consistent rotational minutes every night, and we haven't been able to get that. And if we don't get, a constant look at what this team does look like fully healthy, I get what you mean, where it's maybe not the most intentional tank of all time, but it is something where it's like the tank fell in your lap rather than you forcing the tank.
Well, you look at the year that Paul George was out the entire year. I was clamoring that whole year, like, just guys, take a year off. Just be bad. You're not going to be good. And they pushed it. They ended up making, I think, the play in. And oddly enough, that was the draft they got Myles Turner. And it's funny, you look at that. I think we did this in one of the other pods. You look at that draft, like I think they might have missed out. They missed out on Cat, was the number 1 pick, and then I think Devin Booker was above that. In a weird way, they actually didn't miss much else. Turner was probably one of the better picks in that draft, and that's the only thing that sucks is like they're gonna, if they tank and the tank falls into their lap, it's not like there's a Wembanyama or even a Cooper Flag at the end of the rainbow. I mean, the drafts are always get better as you get closer, and it's like it'll be fun to be in the top 3 if we get there. It would be so Pacers for us to win the number 1 pick in a year where there's not like a number 1 dude out there.
I don't know. I'm not a expert on the draft stuff. Like there's a lot of people that do the high school scouting of these players, and I wait till they play college basketball. But from what I've seen, there's a solid nucleus, the top 3 or 4 of this draft class, right there. You've got Peterson at Kansas, got Boozer at Duke, what's Devonta at BYU. Like I'm impressed enough to say if the Pacers get a top 3 pick, they will probably be getting a very solid NBA player at the very least.
Yeah. And I will say this to all Pacers fans, it's very easy to think you feel snake bit after the Halliburton game 7, Achilles, and then this year just everything going wrong, which is true. But let's not forget, there's a world where the Pelicans don't make that trade with us. Now you can be like, we're snake bit. I mean, at least we have our own pick. Can you imagine, Zion, if we didn't have our own pick? Like this would just be an unmitigated disaster.
No, legitimately. And I'd love to talk to Kevin Pritchard, like off the record. I have a feeling they traded that because they traded the pick they were going to have last year to get their own pick back for next year. I have a feeling that like the reason they did that a week before the draft was really just because they felt like they were behind on some of their scouting, right? Just between going on that finals run and everything. You know what I mean? Like I think
partly right.
I think part of it was like, oh my goodness, the draft's in a week and we don't really have like a set in stone big board. Like, let's just try to see if we can get our pick back for next year.
Yeah.
And it worked out in their favor because obviously at the time they didn't know that Tyrese was going to tear his Achilles. But yeah, it is very fortunate for this team that they were able to get that pick back because if not, New Orleans would be looking at potentially having a top 5 pick this year. And the Pacers would just be sitting here like, wow, we're having a terrible season for no reason.
Yeah. Do you think there's any world where the Pacers? Well, let's say this for a future pod. Sorry, future pod. We'll discuss like trade possibilities, what you want the Pacers to get out of people. We'll save that for later. But yeah, I mean that is. I mean, dude, it's grim. It just sucks that it's like November 7th, and I'm at these games, and I will say this. Here's a positive thing I will say is Halliburton's still there. McConnell's still there. They're at the games. Matherin's still there. Toppin was not. He just had surgery. But the life of this team is still there. McConnell's still doing the handshake line with everybody. They're still laughing and joking, and it doesn't look like a team that's tanking, which is good. Now, maybe they're going to lose a ton of games. Like you look at the Nets, that looks like a bunch of dudes who are like, man, is it March yet? I mean, they already looked bummed out, and I mean, they won. And during the game, like I said, Siakam looks annoyed. Like some of these guys look annoyed that it's not happening and like they're having a bad year. But before the game, it's like you still see that fun of the Pacers and you still see Halliburton there. And I mean, I was telling this to my wife, dude, Halliburton just loves the ball. And that is one thing that I do love about him is, like there was a play where Isaiah Jackson got called for a stupid technical because he's like swiping arms or something. And like, after that, Halliburton goes up and starts talking to the ref, and you see him like gesturing, like, "Why'd you call it? Like, what? Like, why would I? Why?" And like, he wants to know more, and like, what's going on here? What's going on there? And then he's talking to the coaches, and like, he's engaged in the game. It's like, dude, this guy just loves ball. And I was telling that to my wife. I was like, it's awesome that he's here and he's going to every single game. And he could very easily, he is the face of the franchise. He ain't going nowhere. He could very easily be like, hey man, I'm doing 3 months of rehab, and I'll catch you guys in like January. Like this sucks. You guys blow. I'll see you guys in January. And a lot of guys do that. He's not. He's there. He's engaged. He's paying attention. It's like that to me is the positive thing. And to my earlier point, that's where I'm not as concerned this team is going to lose their vibe. But it does suck that it's like, dude, it's November 7th and we're like still 365 days away from seeing this team really play again. We got to wait a whole nother year. We got to live through this whole season.
Exactly. Yeah. And on that Halliburton point, I had the same kind of reaction the second game, because like I wasn't surprised or anything that the OKC opener that he was there, but I was surprised. I was like, oh, he's on the road in Memphis. Like he's going to be with the team all season. Like I didn't really kind of expect that, especially not to start the season. And then
he's on a road trip.
Yeah, you mentioned that Paul George season. I don't remember, right? It's been so long, but I don't really recall him.
I don't remember him
until he came back at the very end of that season. I don't really recall him being around the team, at least not on the road, maybe at home, but I don't really remember him being on road trips and whatnot with the team. So that was refreshing to be like, oh, he is still like there day to day when he really does not have to be.
Well, and especially when they've already said you're out for the year. So it's like, it'd be one thing if they were still like, well, he's doing that because he might come back in March and wants to know the team and the play. It's like, dude, he's out. Like he's not, he could very easily just take the entire year off, be in Florida, work out, and then come back at spring, come back in August at fall camp. And he's not.
Right. Yeah. So it's great to see that. You mentioned, I think we should do a full pod here soon about potential things to maybe do with this pick. I think that's where you're kind of going with that. And whether that's with this pick or with a handful of those players we were talking about, Matherin, Walker and company, and maybe if you could package something or whatnot. But I would like to do that at some point. But as for now, once again, the Pacers they stand at 1-7. They have another 4-game road trip coming up. Do you have any final thoughts heading into this road trip, Scott?
No, man. I mean, this all, we're in a weird spot. We're just in a weird spot because you don't know, what this team is doing. I'm not sure they fully know what's going on. But as I look at this, I like you. I don't want to be like, oh, you go 2-2, you got to do this, you got to do that. I mean, it's not awesome, but you're 1-7. Utah and Phoenix are teams you could theoretically try and beat. I mean, they're kind of your competition for the bottom of the league. How do you look in those two games? I just look at, those two. You have a home game against Toronto, home game against Charlotte. You're at Toronto, you're home to Washington, you're home to Chicago, and then it's December. So like right there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 wins there against kind of subpar teams. Can you win some of those games? Can you get to the start of December and be like 7-14 or something? Like, can you start pulling yourself out of this? Because if you get to December and you're not somewhere within spitting distance of the play-in, I just don't know if you're going to get there because you're playing a lot of bad teams right now. Like that's the truth. Like, if you're losing to Brooklyn and you lose to Toronto and you lose to Charlotte and you lose to Washington or Chicago, it's like you're not going to also be beating Cleveland and New York. So, or Oklahoma City. It's like, what's going on? Like, I don't know how and guys aren't coming back. So you're going to get to a point pretty quick where it's like it's going to make way more sense to tank. And we're getting really close to that because I think like once you get to beginning of December, the schedule actually gets tougher.
Right, that's a good point. And even 7-14, like that'd be good for what we've seen from the start. But if you and I talked a couple weeks ago and we heard 7-14, we probably would have been like, maybe you go into a tank already. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see these next few weeks for sure. And I am hoping that some of these guys start to come back just because even if it is a tank, I don't want it to be as ugly to watch as it has been. Like, I don't know how you feel, but I'm just like, man, I can't watch this many, no disrespect. I can't watch this many like Ray J. Dennis minutes. I'm just like, I'm sick of it.
Well, and that's the thing is, I'm fine if we're going to go and tank and just have a draft pick, but it's like you have all these guys. Like I would love, even if you're just rotating them in and out, like that, I guess, final point is what has been bothersome by watching this is it's like Siakam with Ray J. Dennis and, Robinson Earl and, Cody Martin or Quentin Jackson. It's like, all right, we're learning nothing here. Like Siakam is just steady. It's like, can I see what does it look like when, Nembhard's driving the offense most of the time? Like if he's the point guard, what does that look like? Mathurin, if he's the main scorer, what does that look like? Just seeing Siakam be pissed because Ray J. Dennis isn't good. It's like, that's what I expect. Like Ray J. Dennis isn't good or Talon Peters. Like none of these guys are going to matter for us next year. They're getting a ton of minutes. We still have a lot of pieces that are healthy that I'd like to see maybe try different aspects of their game. Like I said, what does it look like Nembhard's running the point for an entire game? How does that look? Nembhard and McConnell playing points together. How does that look? Like I want to see some of that stuff. So that's my main takeaway from that Nets game. I was just watching it and it's like, none of this matters. Like Nesmith will be here next year. Siakam will be here next year. I know what they're going to do. They're not doing anything different to their games. They're not improving. It's just them playing with a bunch of G Leaguers. And that sucks.
Absolutely. Well, Scott, thank you as always for joining me. Make sure to check out all of our other Back Home Network pods. There's plenty of them. Crimson Cast, Assembly Call now back with the Indiana basketball season getting underway this week. Football weather, the dribble drive, big red carpet, sideline stories, all of those podcasts. Make sure to check them out on the Back Home Network. Once again, I've been Zion Brown, joined by Scott Caulfield, and this has been another episode of Right Up Meridian.